Okay, welcome to a new episode of Nate's MMA Corner. I'm Nate, and if you watch my show, you're in my corner. Today's episode is a post-fight show for UFC 197. Jones versus Ovin St. Preux for the UFC Interim Light Heavyweight Championship of the World. This was a great main card. I wish there was a quick finish on the main event though, because I had somewhere to be, and was hoping the fight would just be quick so I can skedaddle out, but yeah, it ended up being a 5-round decision. We'll get into that in just a second. Okay, so this is a post-fight show of the main card for UFC 197. We had 2 title fights on this card, and let's get started. So the main event was for the UFC Interim Light Heavyweight Championship of the World. Jon Jones coming back from a long layoff due to legal issues against Ovin St. Preux, a top 10 ranked light heavyweight in the UFC. Ovin St. Preux, Strikeforce veteran, UFC veteran, well experienced, well rounded fighter, pretty good cardio, great striking, okay on the ground. Jon Jones, obviously great wrestling background, knows how to use reach, knows how to use height. I thought that this would turn into a case of Jon Jones shoots for a takedown mid to late in the first round, after maybe a little pity patter on the striking the first half of the first round, and then I thought Jon Jones would just take him down and submit him, and that would be it. But this turned into a stand-up war where Jon Jones was winning the exchanges about 2-1. And at any given part of the fight. Yeah, Jon Jones, he won a unanimous decision. It was 50-45 on 2 of the judges and 50-44 on one of the judges for a dominating unanimous decision victory. OSP probably looked his best in the first round, and then second round onward up to the 5th and final round, it was all Jon Jones, and you could say it was Jon Jones still in the first round. Yeah, so Jon Jones is now the UFC Interim Light Heavyweight Champ of the World, and he fights Daniel Cormier, which was just recently announced, to unify the belts at UFC 200, so it's going to be champion versus champion, title for title. Going to be a great fight. I think Jon Jones has that in the bag. Okay, then on to the co-main event. Flyweight UFC title on the line, the 125-pound title. Demetrious Johnson defending his title for the 8th time against Olympic gold medalist in wrestling, Henry Cejudo. And Henry Cejudo I thought would be the toughest challenge of Demetrious Johnson, because I thought his Cejudo's submission defense would hold for a while, and Cejudo would be able to take down Demetrious Johnson. And then Demetrious Johnson would be able to avoid getting pounded out. And Demetrious Johnson might have to play defensive mode for bits and pieces of this fight. But it was pretty much all Demetrious Johnson. 2 minutes and 49 seconds into the first round, he wins by TKO, knees and punches. Good job, Demetrious Johnson. I'm glad he got this one in the bag and defended his belt for the 8th time. Yeah, they clinched up, and Cejudo got up against a cage, and then Demetrious Johnson was able to pound him out against the cage, and you see Cejudo drop to the ground, and Demetrious Johnson pounding him out, en route to a first round TKO victory for Demetrious Johnson. Good job, Mighty Mouse. Yeah, 8th consecutive title defense, pretty amazing. So 2 more to tie the record and 1 more to break the record for most title defenses in UFC history consecutively. Then in the lightweight division we had Edson Barboza versus Anthony Pettis, and this is the only fight on the whole main card that I got wrong on in terms of who won. And Edson Barboza and Anthony Pettis, they stood toe-to-toe striking, and it was there were some heavy shots landed on both ends, but this was towards the tail. As the fight went longer, it was more and more apparent Edson Barboza was winning the striking contest, which I was shocked by, because last time I checked, Anthony Pettis is a third-degree black belt in Taekwondo, and so I thought Anthony Pettis would have the slight advantage and be slightly just beating him to the punch, no pun intended. But I thought he would beat Edson Barboza in that regard. And I met both these guys; they're both great guys. So I was sad to see one of them have to lose and one of them have to. Well, I mean, I'm happy one of them got to win, but I'm sad to see one of them had to lose. But yeah, Anthony Pettis, yeah, he just got outstruck. I mean, his striking defense was not able to hold up, and he got battered for 3 rounds, and it was well, it was 29-28 on 2 of the judges, and then 30-27 on the 3rd judge. Yeah, I would say this was this should have been 30-27 across the board. I don't know what those judges were seeing. This was pretty apparent. Edson Barboza won every round decisively due to strikes. Yeah, the whole fight stayed standing. Towards the tail end, I thought Anthony Pettis should go for takedowns and go for a submission, kind of go for broke in the ground game. But he wanted to try his luck, keep the fight stay standing, and yeah, unfortunately, it did not pay off. But Anthony Pettis put in some effort, and I hope he bounces back from this loss. And Edson Barboza, I hope he has a big fight waiting for him because he's paid his dues. And this is a big win for Edson Barboza, who just beat a top 5 ranked lightweight in the UFC. So good job, Edson Barboza. Then in the middleweight division, we had Robert Whittaker versus Rafael Natal, and Robert Whittaker, he just outlanded Rafael Natal and really rocked him, and this was a great fight. Rafael Natal wasn't able to do much, and it was 30-27 for one judge and 29-28 for the other 2 judges, for Robert Whittaker. Yeah, I would say this was a good striking clinic for Robert Whittaker. Robert Whittaker, I think he'll take some good experience from this because Natal, you know, he's a possible threat on the ground. You always have to be careful on his ground game. And I think Robert Whittaker came into this fight knowing that. Then, so yeah, Robert Whittaker beats Rafael Natal in the middleweight division by unanimous decision. Then to kick off the main card, in the featherweight division, we had Yair Rodriguez versus Andre Touchy-Fili. And this was KO flying head kick, 2nd round, 2 minutes and 15 seconds. Great job, Yair Rodriguez. I could see some people having a little controversy with this because Andre Fili was rubbing his eye in the mix of this happening, but for a possible eye poke. But yeah, the ref didn't call it, and Yair got a legit win in the 2nd round, KO flying head kick, and it was a good, clean knockout. There's no controversy. I mean, he was out. And yeah, Yair Rodriguez, like I said on my pre-fight show, he's a top prospect to look out for in the featherweight division. Izzy Martinez taught him some great wrestling, and Yair already came in with great striking, so he's becoming more and more well-rounded. And now it's just a question of his submission offense and defense getting better, which it's already pretty good. So yeah, I can't wait to see more of Yair Rodriguez. And this wraps up my post-fight show for UFC 197. Stay tuned for my next episode, which will be a pre-fight show for Overeem versus Arlovsky. And yeah, that will be the first UFC event in Holland, so I'll be excited for that one. So stay tuned for my pre-fight show on that. So until then, see ya.